This channel is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions.
Hi, this is Joe Rabil with Invest Like a Pro. I'm going to give you a stock market update, go through the market conditions, and then run through all the different time frames based on trend and momentum. So let's go ahead and get going. I'm going to use the S&P today and just focus on that. So what I want to do, I've got the market conditions on the left for anyone new to this show here. And I like to start from the bottom and look at the sentiment first and then work my way up. So the sentiment made a pretty big jump this week. It's up to 24. The difference between the bulls and the bears is up to 24%. Now, the bulls went up by, I don't know, it was around 40 or 41 up to 49 in a single week. That's a pretty big jump that I've noticed. And as I've mentioned, if we get up towards the mid 50s for the bulls, that is a little bit more dangerous. It gets a little bit more dangerous. Now, we've already got a separation where we could be looking for some kind of a trading peak to take place, but we haven't reached an overbought. So I use the 5 RSI on a weekly chart for the S&P, and we've worked our way up to 64. Now, if we get, I'll tell you, if we get something that develops where this works its way up to overbought, and the bulls work their way up to the low to mid 150s, to the 50s, then I think we need to be on the lookout for some signs of a short-term correction pullback, something a little bit deeper than maybe just a 2 to 3 day type of decline. Something more along the lines of this if we get into that position. So I just wanted to make that clear. It's not like I'm looking for that. I just think that's the most obvious next point to look for based on the way the price action is. And I'm going to go into the trend and momentum in a second. But first, I want to talk about the volatility, because look at what the volatility is doing. You see the drop in the daily average true range? The size of these bars are shrinking dramatically, dramatic drop. We already had the weekly dropping. And what I've been saying is that if the volatility is going down, the size of these bars is shrinking, that is not distribution. We're not going through a distribution phase right now if this line is plummeting like that, okay? So we have to respect what's going on. So I look at this, and now I see this is below a declining moving average, and this is below a declining moving average. So I think we have to respect the fact that until we start to see an increase in the size of these bars and an increase in volatility, then I think we have to maybe be on the lookout for this to want to push a little bit higher. I'll go into whether I think this can get through this 4,200 or not. In terms of the market conditions with respect to the trend and momentum, I really could have turned the daily to positive. The weekly, I really can't do that because the moving averages are too flat, but they're not bearish. We're not in a bearish position right now. The monthly is really neutral. The others are a little bit more, I would say maybe a little bit more to the positive side, but the momentum is not all that great. So let's go ahead and look at these. And when I say neutral, we can't have a more neutral pattern than when we sit below the declining 18-month and a rising 40-month for about a year straight. Okay, that's about as neutral as you can get. Now, we have worked off the overbought condition in the MACD, and it's cupping around. It's kind of doing one of these little flyby patterns rather than touching all the way down to the zero line, but there's really not a lot of strength in the sellers at this point. It never got above 25. It did make higher highs and higher lows, but never got through the 25 mark. And now it's sort of deteriorated a little bit. That the sellers seem to be losing a little bit of strength. What's missing is this. Let me just zero in on this for a second. You see this line here? We really need to see a move in green DI on the monthly chart, busting through to the upside here. If we get that, then I think we have to have a lot more respect for the upside potential in this market. But right now, I'm not focused on the longer term momentum. I'm actually focusing in on the daily. Right now, the weekly has completed. Let me just draw this out for you. We had the trend line break, we tested it, and now we're turning up from that. So in doing so, we have done the one is the is the break of the trend line, 2 is the test, and then if we come back up through this peak here, that would be the 3. So I call this transition, right? We've turned up from here, so now we're caught between these two areas. If we turn down from here, that's sort of failure of the 1, 2, 3. It's like a failed buy signal, and if you notice, that would also be with the moving average as a failure, and a lot of times the price structure will give you the exact same read that you'll see in the moving averages, and you want to double check your moving average reads. If you're seeing, and do the same thing with your price reads, is the moving averages telling you the same thing? Well, this has basically come into the zone and come out, but it hasn't taken out the highs. If it comes back down through here, that's failure. So that's how I would see the moving average. It's the exact same way I would view what's going on in the price, because now we've broken the trend line and tested to the high. So we've got two different 1, 2, 3s taking place at the same time. I mean, it's not that often that this takes place, but the fact is that if we turn down from here, then you have to be looking for a test of the low, because we've completed a 1, 2, 3 to the downside. That's going to be weakness. It's also going to confirm that we did not complete the 1, 2, 3 to the upside. So we just have to watch that. Now, this is more bigger picture stuff, right? What's going on in the monthly and the weekly. So we have to look and see what is going on the daily chart right now to see what are our odds of getting through this 18-month line, right? I mean, are we going to get through that line? So what I do is, instead of making a decision right now whether it's going to happen, I don't like to guess. I don't like to be one of those guys that's making a big market call. What I want to do is look at the immediate momentum. And if we get a pivot low here that turns up, right now, we've got some signs of a reversal. It's not a great pivot, but it's actually good enough that if we were to turn up from here and go to a new high, I'd have to consider that a pivot low for the green DI. It would be a pinch play buy, essentially, on the MACD, and we would have to think that we're going to at least take a hard look at this 420 area and go back to this peak. Now, if we're going to get through that, we are going to need to see the green DI hit a new high. We're going to probably need to see decent volume action. And again, if we're going to keep going and do something significant, I would actually like to see a little bit better action out of the weekly time frames. The volume action I mentioned a few weeks ago is still an encouraging sign, but it should be reflected in the indicators. There's a high correlation to DI and volume. So if the volume picks up, we should see a stronger move in the green DI, and we really need to see the blue line, the ADX line, crossing above 25 to confirm a new trend. If this is going to break out through this peak here, we're going to need to see strength in this blue line. This ADX line's got to get above 25. All right. Now, the good news is, in the market, at least right now, is the last peak here, this last run on the hourly, had a nice move to the upside on a MACD basis, and it's worked that off. And look at the strength of the ADX on the move to the upside, and we've worked that off. So both of these are overbought, oversold oscillators. We've worked that off without doing any damage, really. So I could see this maybe coming and doing one of these deals. If it pulls off one of those, then we should be definitely looking for a test of these peaks, and then look to see what kind of strength we get out of the volume. And really, if we're going to go from here, we're going to get a big green bar. We should get a big green bar if we're going to really go. If we don't get a big green bar and they're small, or at least get a volume bar that's breaking out, and we should definitely see green DI make a higher high. I mean, those are the types of things I'd be watching for. And then I want to see that ADX getting ever so close, closer to the 25 line. And really, if we break out, we're going to need to see that cross over to confirm. All right, so that's the update for the week. Have a great long weekend.